I'll make that make sense. Are you a
Yeah.
religion or you're not a religion?
So they're being protected under freedom of religion when convenient, right? So let's talk about it. Let's go back here. Let's unpack it real quick. Is it a religion? Yes, it is. What religion? It's Satan's gatekeeper's religion. In every high level of science, academia, those over college, those that deal with keeping the infrastructure of Satan's kingdom in place, all of these are headed by Freemasons. That's why they call themselves the master builders. Okay, they are the pillars for Satan's Babylonian construct when he set up governments. So, of course, you have the rest of the people who are sheep, but you have to have those in the secret science who has a separate protocol where they operate outside the structure to influence what's inside the structure. See? They're like Satan's guardian angels. Now, let's break it down. Now, some people are a part of the Freemasons and don't have no idea the fraternity they've actually made an oath to. They're just there on the surface level for the community, and those are needed so that no one can suspect any nefarious, intentions. So you can have the people who are on the lower level who deal in the community, do fundraisers and sell cookies and come out and make sure that people are right in the community and have parties and cabarets or whatever they call them today. And these are the normal parts of the society, but you have to realize in a building, that's how the example I can give you. In a building, every part of a building doesn't have the same what? It doesn't have the same importance. In a building, you have windows, but guess what? You better have a foundation. And then at the top, you got the penthouse where the head, the pyramid of the head of the pyramid runs the whole building. So just like they got people just like the building. Some people are just the windows. Some people are just the doors. Some people are the structure. But all in all, it's Satanism, religion in plain sight. And it's based off of the oaths. In the Bible, the Most High says we aren't to swear at all. And if you have to commit an oath to anything or anyone outside of God, you are doing what? Making a union and a pact with Satan. I'm glad you're bringing this out in the midst of what we're talking about, because let me go to here real quick, because this definition you put when you ask AI, okay, whether or not Freemasonry is not a religion. And do AI lie? Absolutely.
Yep.
AI is a wealth of information, but AI lies. So usually what you find in AI is the structured talking points that were created by the gatekeepers on what to divulge and or what to hide. When you look at this overview, no, Freemason is not a religion, but a fraternal organization that requires members to believe in a supreme being. Well, we don't need a fraternal organization that requires members to believe in a supreme being. Because how do you know this is farce? You had to have had a belief system in order to become a Freemason, which means you already believed in a supreme being. Right? So this supreme being they're talking about here isn't God. Right? Because we didn't need to make an oath to Freemasons to believe in a supreme being, unless the different one outside of the God we thought we were serving. Now, here's the key thing that came with this, Elder. I'm glad you put it here. The grand architect of the universe. Now, they do serve the grand architect, but of this world. who had a part in the creation after Christ created him from the beginning in the heavens. So he was there in the original luminaries when Christ created Lucifer in the beginning of creating this universe. So he takes all that knowledge and now he compartmentalized that for a separate construct for himself. His name is Lucifer. And when the Freemasons get up past 33 and up, they find out his name that's called is Yabulon or Jabulon. So when you hear people say Yah, it's Yabulon. It's Satan. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it says, and the grand architect of the universe and encourages personal faith while prohibiting religious discussions in lodges to unite men of diverse monotheistic backgrounds. It provides moral and ethical teachings. And you know what? That part is correct. There is a moral code that must be what? That must be adhered to, that would seem on the surface ethical. A lot of upstanding men and women who become Eastern stars, witches, have an ethics code or an example with etiquette that most people within our community would look up to. And I think that confuses people when it comes to suspecting that there's something evil in the midst of it. Right?
Here is an angel of light.
Exactly. So they teach etiquette, they teach history, artistic appreciation, historical appreciation. A lot of things that are right is within the Freemasonry knowledge. Well, of course, because why? The tree that Samuel made from the beginning had good and evil. See, and that's what the community, that confuses the community, because what's put before the earth or the community when it comes to these fraternities are the good they provide. Why what? Why concealing the evil side of the tree. Okay? Now check this out. It provides moral and ethical teachings, drawing on symbols from various faiths like the Bible, but has no dogma, offers no salvation.
Right.
So it offers no salvation. Why would a Christian make an oath within this religious fraternity? And isn't a substitute for one's own religion. Why they don't want you to leave your religion? Because you'll take the plan, the secret plan that you learned amongst that fraternity, and you'll have a different objective for the lodge in that particular church, mosque, or what have you, outside of the construct of that particular religious sect, which makes it destructive, because you're coming from an authoritative position with a different agenda, but everyone in your church believes that you're on the same page as the God you serve within that church, mosque, synagogue, whatever it might be.
Or police force.
Or police force. Now, it's deep that they say it's a fraternity. Well, here's the conflict of interest right here. And why the police are being sued by the Freemasons in London. Why? Because the original police who were set up were Freemasons. The majority, if not 100% of the fraternity came of how the police force was created, was directly out of the lodges. That's why they call it the fraternity of police. It wasn't until later they began to let in others, but it was the Irish, Scottish, especially here in the United States, in major cities, they were used as vanguards against the uprising of our people in the community, straight out of the lodges. Before there were black police initiated into the fraternity. When it was segregation, all of the police were Freemasons. And the Freemasons was set up to keep Jacob in check.
Right.
Okay, so when our people join Freemasons, even Prince Hall, it's a form of betrayal. It's betraying our God and betraying that church or the Christ we prayed to who got us through this. And it's a betrayal because we're joining allegiance to a fraternity that was set up to oppose our people in the community before you were invited in. It's a form of betrayal on the highest level, regardless of how it may seem. Next, let's go into the origin of these fraternities when America became a thing, 1776. And when we think of Freemasons, we think of what? The Hellfire Club, which so happens, not coincidentally, came directly out of England, Shapat. When I was in England, it so happens I drove by and I seen Hellfire Club there. I'm like, whoa, this is where all this evil comes from the Scottish and York Freemasons. But these people have a separate agenda altogether within Freemasonry. They're Satanists. Now let's talk about the Hellfire Club, right? And without dropping all of this, because our so-called police force came out of it, right? Let me get this out of the way, close. Who so happened to have been a Freemason? This Jewish guy by the name of Benjamin Franklin. He's honored all throughout the United States, predominantly here in where I grew up in Philadelphia. The Smithsonian Magazine asks, why were there so many skeletons hidden in Benjamin Franklin's basement? During the restorations in the 1990s, more than 1,200 pieces of bone surfaced beneath the Founding Fathers' London home. Well, this guy the whole time was sacrificing to Satan as a decorated member of the Hellfire Club. So when they formed the Constitution and created this land we call the United States on paper, Satanists from the fraternity were a part of what? The foundation that the pillars would stand on. Everything we're seeing now was their plan since 1776. And now, at the very end, the Most High said that man of sin shall be revealed. Shall be revealed. Now, the synagogue of Satan, which are the Jewish fraternity of Talmudists, they cannot be hid, and neither can the Freemasons be hid as good doers for society anymore. They're being exposed all together as what? As the vanguard, as the construct that held up Satan's kingdom for centuries in plain sight. Now let's go back to the police now. Right? Let's go back to the police. This is why the police want to sue and say, please don't tell people and out Freemasons anymore, because what? They're being forced to go back and hiding like they were back then during the Hellfire Club, when it was secret, when witches and warlocks feared exposing their true intentions against God's people. This is why they're being driven back in to the closet, to the darkness, the shadows they came out of. But before they do that, they'll implode the whole construct, feeling that they're responsible for upholding it. And if their society cannot be upheld with them being upstanding citizens before the world, they'll rather tear the whole thing down. Now, I'll give it to you now.
Right. And speaking of tearing it down, Elder, speaking of tearing it down, what a segue. I've superimposed Albert Pike, unelected. He's not an elected official. He was, according to history, the worst, Confederate, part of the Confederacy in America, was actually arrested, right? I didn't know that. His statue in Washington, D.C. is the only statue of a Confederate person and of someone who was not an elected official. The only one in Washington, D.C. It was tore down. Speaking of tearing things down, it was tore down under one of the funnel effects, the butterfly effects of Freemasonry, which is to part of that debauchery hellfire thing to just eradicate and set the nihilist free. That's part of what Albert Pike said in Morals and Dogma. Apparently, AI says Freemasons have no dogma, but the founder of it created a book called Morals and Dogma. Make that make sense.
Morals
Square
and
that.
Dogma, where he admitted that before the very end, that they're going to bring the true light, the worship of Satan, before the world to be accepted. And this is the time we're in now.
Right, and which we'll get to later in the news, if it be the Most High's will, speaking about those 3 wars and setting the nihilists free. But anyway, this guy is AI saying there's no dogma. The guy wrote the book called Morals and Dogma, right? But speaking of Freemasons, real quick, if you didn't know these precepts, I'm going to read them very quickly before wrapping up and getting to the next news here. Proverbs 6, 12, and 13. Speaking of these fraternal hand gesture, standing a certain way on your square, and so on and so forth. Proverbs 6 and 12. A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. He winketh with his eyes, wink, wink, nor the one eye or seeing eye. He speaketh with his feet. How on earth can you speak with your feet? Well, certain stand gestures. And I'm going to come back to that speaking with your feet in a moment. He teacheth with his fingers, the little hand symbol they do with the hand on the chest and all the different things that they do. Well, going back to that speaking with the feet, the article says the people representing the Freemasons of London that are trying to stop the police from having a policy that if you're part of a secret organization that quote unquote protects each other, despite what the laws say, then you have to, let people know that you're part of that organization. It doesn't even say that you have to not be part of that organization, which is strange. But anyway, here's the thing. The Freemasons, the representative for the Freemasons, Ugly, United Grand Lodge of England, they came out and said, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Mark Rowley, is making up the law on the hoof. Interesting phrase. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Remember what Proverbs 6:14 said? Proverbs 6:13. He speaketh with his feet. This Freemason said, you're making up the law on the hoof. What does that?
The foot.
The foot. What does that entail? That's around in America, the Prohibition times. And in the UK, they had a story, I forget the author of the books behind the character, a fictional character of the investigative guy, what's his name? Sherlock Holmes. Many books about the fictional character Sherlock Holmes, but one of them was where a guy was going around murdering people and he put on hooves on his shoes to make it look like it was an animal walking, and therefore the investigators wouldn't follow his tracks.
Well, it's deep in of itself to why, and we understand why they don't want exposure, because what this does, Shapad, it highlights the fact that there's a serious conflict of interest, right? So if there's orders that's being given to the people under you within the department, that's a clear, detailed order that all could understand coming from within the building based on whatever objectives need to be achieved in that community for that service. Well, you need to let us know if orders are being done from a different fraternity for reasons we don't know. So you put someone in position and everyone is in the office or everyone is in the the police station is saying, this doesn't make sense why we're doing this. If we do it this way, wouldn't more crime ensue? So the police are like, why would he tell us to do this? Unless there's a conflict where someone wants crime to ensue and wants you to stand down, right? So this is why they don't want it exposed, because when there's certain areas they would like to push society, they have to come in and nudge a little bit. they got people in place who can help with that. That's a conflict with what their orders should be in any particular service department we're paying our taxes for. They don't want you to know there's an outside influence based on a separate fraternity that could undermine the people who are actually doing the service for the community. They don't want you to know that. They want you to think that all the orders are coming in organically to service the community positively. Well, if it's to help us, why not allow us to know who's who might have a separate objective? If it haven't been harming our people when it comes to the orders coming from the fraternities or Freemasons. So when we see the crime in our communities, when we see the destructive environment that was created, we just can't look at the people. We have to look at what? The police, who was actually paid to protect and serve or to keep order in a community. So obviously, they were what? They're put in position to have society exactly the way it is. Because without chaos and crime, there's no need for police officers. So if there's not enough crime, they'll help generate it. So if you expose those who are behind these nefarious ideas to keep our community destroyed, then the gig is up. So they say, no, we're going to sue. Hey, we can't let you know that people coming in and messing stuff up and going back in the closet. Nah. If you believe in the rules you're bringing forth from your fraternity as an authority, you go before the world and stand on it.
Right. Thank you.
Stand on it. Why do it in secret? See? And that's why John tell you what? They don't come to the light because their deeds are evil. A matter of fact, hold on, let me read that. So anything that's in the dark, where you got to do all these secret fraternities and different oaths and rites before some men blindfolded, how can that be? How can that be good? Let me read it real quick. Right? Let me read that real quick. John 3:18. John 3:18, let me read that. He that believeth in him is not condemned, speaking of Christ. But he that believeth not is condemned already, because he have not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. That's why they do these shadow oaths and all that to high priests within their fraternity in secret. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be manifest, that they were wrought in the Most High. So if you have nothing to hide, why would you sue the police to try to what? Convince them or to tell them or to scare them into not divulging who's a Freemason within the force? If your intentions are good or in the light, your deeds are evil, and Christ exposes that. All right? The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.